Let There Be Carnage, and details about his Joker connection. People have played with the concept that these two characters are very similar, the idea of a crossover or fusion, that it would really work. But these two are slightly more connected than some realize. Greetings comic lovers, and welcome back to Casually Comics, the channel where we chat all things comics, from reviews of comics new and old, to history to anecdotes, really wherever our whims take us. Tracing the creation of characters and the reasons behind them can be a fascinating process. Not everything has some deep meaning, but some have interesting factors behind why characters came about. Carnage is one such character, the first offspring to appear after Venom. This is in the original chronology. Retcons and first hosts and all those other things that have rendered all of this far more convoluted were on the horizon when Carnage first came into being. Sometimes all that twisting and winding of canon can just leave you wishing that you disbanded while you had the chance. That's right, I have new merch. If you too sometimes wonder if you should have disbanded, then this t-shirt, or shirt, or mug, or sweater is for you. I will have the link down below if you're interested in checking it out. I'm Sasha, and it's time to talk about Carnage and also do YouTube things like and subscribe. Now, Carnage was born of the Venom symbiote in more ways than one. In fact, Carnage only came about because Marvel wouldn't let then Spider-Man writer David Michelinie kill off Eddie Brock. Initially, he had plans to kill the character in Amazing Spider-Man 400, just round it out since he fully appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 300, and then have the symbiote take on new hosts, just hop from host to host. However, by this time in Marvel history, the character was becoming quite popular, and not just the character, but the characters together, Eddie Brock and Venom, as one. So execs didn't want to mess with the Eddie Venom dynamic. Not at the time, that would happen later. So instead the idea was floated about for a new symbiote, a darker symbiote. But who to attach it to? Now there is contention around the idea of who exactly deserves credit for creating Eddie Brock, but aside from a brief cameo in 1986 as a hand, he essentially debuted and emerged with Venom. Because the actual emergence of Venom in that story doesn't really have a lot to do with the narrative. It's a vehicle to get the costume, the black cloth costume that Peter was wearing all the time, off of him, because artist Todd McFarlane didn't want to draw it. And I have quotes, sassy quotes. McFarlane stated, "I came into the Spider-Man office after doing the Hulk, and they wanted me to do Spider-Man, but he was in this black costume. I didn't want to draw this black costume. It meant nothing to me. I wanted to draw the red and blue. So they said, Todd, if you just come on at $2.98, we promise that maybe we can get rid of it." And I go, well, let's just get rid of it fast. So I did a character, I ripped the costume off him, I did this character called Venom, handed it to David Michelinie, the writer, and they said, just hold on. So essentially, number 300 is the origin of Venom, but to me it's how the hell do we get this goddamn black costume off Peter Parker issue? So in the series proper, this played out initially in 299 when Venom shows up at the end and does something to Mary Jane, something so traumatizing that she can't bear to see Peter in the black costume ever again. So this would see the transformation of the original black costume from alien symbiote to a more concrete entity, beginning a journey that would lead to an explosion of symbiotes and eventually an explosion of lore and lots of retroactive canon. So much. It became one of those, oh, it's all godlike entities kind of retcons. And now it's one of those things where people write it like it always was that way, but no, we're gonna follow it as it happened. Now, unlike with Eddie, with the follow-up with Carnage, there's more of an opportunity to figure out just who exactly should the symbiote be attached to. There is less of a rush of, oh no, if we don't do this, McFarlane won't draw Spider-Man. So the new symbiote would find itself attached to Cletus Kasady. Cletus Kasady had debuted in the Amazing Spider-Man number 344 in 1991. He was created by David Michelinie and Eric Larson. Larson later stated that he did indeed model the character off of DC's Joker, and you can really see it. He stayed on the Image Comics community forum. Oh yes, went deep into the Wayback, to the archives. Yes, I designed Cletus Kasady. He was inspired by the Joker. I basically drew the Joker and had him colored with regular skin and red hair. He's introduced as Eddie Brock's cellmate. Eddie was separated from Venom at the time. There's not that much noteworthy in his first appearance aside from how much he looks like the Joker. They established that he's a serial killer and the narration sasses him a little bit. He gets sassed by the narrator the next issue too when he witnesses the symbiote come and rescue Eddie. And there's this ominous panel where he looks out over the wrecked wall and a drop of oil falls on him, but it looks like the symbiote. They would do the whole, how did this happen later on. So that happens in issue 345 of Amazing Spider-Man, and he's not seen again until issue 359, which is also the first cameo appearance of Carnage. This in 1992. But the Joker similarities that some perceive extend outside of the appearance. They enter into the realm of philosophies. Now, Carnage had some other names floating around as potentials. They were Ravage and Chaos, and it seemed like Carnage had a similar mindset to the one they sometimes put forward as the Jokers. I say sometimes because there have been many different mindsets put forward for the Joker over the years. Kasady's backstory always saw him as sadistic and dangerous, and over time and years of abuse, adopting a philosophy of life is meaningless and that laws are just words, and that really one can do anything everything since nothing matters. Some liken this as akin to the Joker's everything's a joke philosophy, a joke that other people just don't get. Some think the joke is Carnage's philosophy, that life is meaningless. So some felt that Carnage was just an amped up Joker with a symbiote. Die, but I haven't done anything wrong. That's precisely the point. However, others felt no, there was a difference. That despite the name, Carnage was in ways more controlled, in the fact that in some ways he was more predictable. He was just following a serial killer's mindset. Some argued that he wasn't actually as interesting, that the Joker could sometimes be out of control, setting up plans that were certain to fail solely focused on Batman, or completely beyond caring about laws being real or unreal. Also the fact that the Joker would have elaborate plans, and Carnage was much more of a let's just kill a bunch of people. Maximum Carnage. Of course there are different interpretations because people view these characters differently based on when they came to them and just how they interpret what's going on in the text, or the inferences you could make in between the text, the subtext. Now these two would meet in a crossover. This was back when DC and Marvel crossed over. They haven't for quite some time of recording. However, there was a period where this would happen. The universes established in many was simply the idea that these two worlds had always coexisted. Such was the case for the Batman and Spider-Man comics. Yes, comics, plural. For our purposes, we need the first one, Spider-Man and Batman Disordered Minds. This was released in 1995. It was written by J.M. DeMatteis with art by Mark Bagley. The concept of this story was that a psychiatrist has a chip that will neutralize homicidal behavior. Guess she watched A Clockwork Orange on loop. She uses it on Kasady and the Joker. Only surprise, surprise, it doesn't work on Kasady. It appears that it does, but the symbiote doesn't actually let it work, and instead lets Kasady pretend that it works. This so that when they go and implant it in the Joker, Carnage can then take it out. This is because he's a huge Joker stan, is thrilled to work with him, feels that the Joker is the only person who truly gets him. He feels they have the same philosophy. I posted the panel of the two of them meeting in the community tab where people asked if the Joker was wearing a bathrobe. It's just he modified the outfit he was wearing. He was in a suit and he didn't like it, so he jazzed it up. So this story actually grapples with the question of, are these two one and the same? It's a huge theme running through the story. What's interesting is that the conclusion that the story comes to is, while there may be similarities, at the bottom of it the answer is no, and that they actually wouldn't work well together at all. Ultimately, their collaboration falls apart very quickly. Carnage ends up infuriated with the Joker's plans because he feels that they take too long and they take the fun out of killing. He starts going into the detail, very visceral, about how you can do all these amazing things like peel people like grapes, which the Joker is actually a little squicked out by. So this story actually focuses on highlighting some of the differences. I thought you had the stomach for death, Joker? Guess I was wrong. It's not a question of stomach, my friend. It's a question of style. The Joker feels that anybody can do what Carnage does, but that what he does is way more memorable. He calls himself the Orson Welles of crime and then says that Carnage is the David Hasselhoff, to which I say don't Hasselhoff. These really dated references that are supposed to be deep cuts. Now, not everybody is going to gel with this presentation, and some feel that no, this would work, especially as Carnage is presented here with such a Joker fanboy, and that the differences don't add up for them. Again, it's different strokes for different folks. It really depends on how you view these two's philosophies. Some were just hyped to see them together on panel. There are just some characters that you want to see cross over, and some people felt that because of the similarities, it would be cool to see them do something. Now, this story also does this interchange thing with presenting Kasady as haunting Batman's nightmares and the Joker as haunting Spider-Man's. It's trying to say something. I'm not gonna lie, that aspect of the story always sucks me down a hole where I think that I'm overthinking it. It's why I've never done a full review of this story, even though I just want my terrible Spider-Man voice to meet my terrible Batman voice. Maybe in the sequel. Don't let your dreams be dreams. If you've read Disordered Minds and have insights or interpretations of what they're going for with those dream sequences, please talk to me. Tell me things down below. On the whole, this is a decent crossover. It's not revolutionary in terms of plot or anything like that, but it is really cool to see these iconic characters together, especially with the art style of the time, which is really working for this story. The reasons that characters do what they do makes sense in universe and with the characteristics established in the story, and also the lore of the time. It's not the deepest thing, but if you wanted to see these characters together, it is worth having. Now, the idea of the Joker with a symbiote, specifically the Carnage one, has worked its way around the fandom community for years. There's musings, there's art. Some feel it will be pure chaos personified, while others aren't so sure. What do you think? Do you think that the Joker and Kasady Carnage are essentially the same? Do you think they'd get along, or do you agree with the crossover's logic that it would fall apart? Are you a fan of either of these characters? Why or why not? Tell me down below. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time today to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.